Hello students, let us discuss about information technology or IT. IT stands for information technology and it is used in the context of computers. Information technology uses computers and software to manage information and to store, process, convert, protect, transmit and retrieve information securely. So this information technology is for information itself and it is making use of the computers and software to manage the information. Okay. So moving further, what is a computer? A computer is an electronic device, hardware that process input data and result, means that gives result or output according to set of instructions called program, which is nothing but a software. So as we know, the computer is an electronic device, which is a hardware which we can touch, right? Then what it does, it will process the given data to it. Whatever the data is given to it, that will be processed and we get a result or the output. And also computer will not work on its own. A computer works according to the set of instructions. Okay, that is nothing but the program, which is also called the software, right? So based on the instructions given to it, a computer will work. Now look at this block diagram of a computer. This is the input unit where it has keyboard, mouse. Then this is the CPU, central processing unit, which has arithmetic and logic unit, control unit and memory unit. And this is the output unit. So what happens here is we give input, okay, that is data to the computer through the keyboard or mouse. Then that will be processed in the CPU. And once it is processed, we get the output in the on the monitor or the printer. Okay, so it is called as IPO cycle. Okay, input, process, output, and also if we want, we can store it, right? The data or information can be stored. Okay, so see here input. What it does, it accepts data and instructions by the way of inputs through keyboard, mouse, touchscreen, etc. Any of them we can use, any of the input device we can use to enter the data. Then store. Okay, in the computer we can store the data and the instructions also. Okay, as and when required, we can make use of this stored data. Then processing. So what it does is it processes, that is carries out arithmetic or logical operations on data and convert them to useful information. So whatever we are entering is just a data, raw data. Okay, then that particular data will be processed, okay, either by the arithmetic operations, okay, like addition, subtraction, multiplication, or some logical operations are also performed, okay, like and or not, where the output comes in true or false format. Okay, and once the data is processed, okay, the raw data is processed, we get the information, which is a meaningful one. Okay, raw data is nothing but meaningless, any numbers, any figures we can enter. Then output. Okay, once the data is processed, what happens is we get the final result. Okay, it presents the final result for the user in form of output. Okay, and where it will be displayed either on the screen or the printer or the speaker, etc. Now, as we saw the block diagram of a computer which has the ALU, just now we discussed this arithmetic and logic operations, okay, that will be conducted there. Then we have CU, control unit. Okay, what does this control unit do now? It works as a bridge between the ALU and the memory unit, that is MU. Okay, so what it will do, it takes the input from the input unit and gives the instructions to store data in the memory. So it is acting as a bridge, taking the input and giving the instruction to the memory to store the data inside it. Then we have MU, memory unit. The amount of data can be stored in this storage unit. So memory unit is used to store the data. And actually it is of two types, primary memory and secondary memory. Now this primary memory, what it does is it holds the data and instructions on which the computer is currently working. The currently working Data of the computer is stored in the primary memory, and it is of two types, RAM and ROM. RAM stands for random access memory and ROM stands for read-only memory. Then we have secondary memory. That is, this type of memory is also known as external memory. Example, disk, CD-ROM, DVD, etc. So external devices which can be connected to the computer. That is the secondary memory. We can store data here as well. Then moving further, we have got some programming languages. Okay, what are these programming languages now? Before proceeding further with the programming language, let me explain you, like we we are communicating, or I am communicating with you all, okay, in a language. Okay, so a language is must to understand, right? If I am able to talk the language, then you are able to understand that language. So language is must for a communication. Similarly, a programming language is must for a computer to communicate. The language which is required to communicate with the computer is known as programming language. Okay, so they are as follows. The first one is machine language, the only language understood by the computer. So this is the only language which is understood by the computer, that is the machine language. And it is written only in binary numbers 0 and 1. And it is known as the first generation language. The processor understands the instructions and program is faster. Okay, so here the program is faster. The reason is, as the computer understands machine language, here only the binary numbers 0 and 1 are used. So the program is very faster and the processor understands the instructions very clearly. But there is a drawback also. Writing program takes a lot of time because the program has to be written in the binary format, that is zeros and ones. Programmers has to learn machine language, that is binary, for each processor on which they want to write program. So now the programmer has to learn the binary language. Otherwise, he cannot write the program. Okay, so for each processor, whatever they want to write, they have to learn each processor binary language. Okay, then general user can't understand. Normal users cannot understand this binary language. Then detecting and rectifying error is difficult. So if any error or mistake is there, to rectify it, it will become very difficult. Moving further. Then we have assembly level language. Here in the assembly level language, what happens is, the instructions are actually written in English like words. Okay, that is, the shortcut words are used, like add for addition, sub for subtraction, mul for multiplication, LDA for load, etc. All these are shortcut words which are used, and these are the English words. Okay, so these codes are called mnemonics. Each machine has its own assembly language, which is dependent on the architecture of the processor. So every machine has its own assembly language. So it is machine dependent actually. Then to convert assembly language into machine language, a translator is used, that is assembler. So as discussed, the computer understands only machine language. So we are talking about assembly language here. So assembly language needs a translator. Okay, to convert assembly language into machine language, this translator will be helpful, that is the assembler. Then it is also known as the second generation language. The advantages of it are easy to use. It is very easy to use as English words are there. Correction of errors are also easy and it is easy to understand. But the disadvantages, it is machine dependent. Then we have high level languages, wherein all the English alphabets, numbers and symbols are used and the program is easy to read and write. The computer may not understand it directly. Okay, but as the computer may not be able to understand it directly, we are saying means as the computer understands only machine language. So here also what happens, the translator is used, and these translators are either a compiler or a interpreter. Okay, a compiler translates the whole program, okay, the whole code at a time. Okay, and it gives the error at the end. And this interpreter, what it does, it will translate the code, that is the instruction of the program, line by line. Okay, so this way it is helpful, right? Moving further. Now, what is a computer hardware? A computer hardware includes the physical parts of computer, okay, such as cache, central processing unit, monitor, mouse, keyboard, computer data storage, graphic card, sound card, speakers, and motherboard. So all the physical parts which we can literally touch. Okay, these are the computer hardware. All right. Then we have got computer software. What is this software now? It is a collection or set of programs. And what is a program? A set of instructions given to a computer to perform a particular task. Okay, in order to finish a particular task, a computer is being given instructions. So it has to follow that particular instruction so that the given task is completed. And also, what are the characteristics of a software? It cannot be touched. We cannot touch the software, but we can feel its presence. And this software makes the computer work. Software devices are made available in the storage devices on the memory. So, in the memory, on the storage devices, all these software devices are available. And it also controls all the devices attached to the computer system. That is the printer, the speaker, anything it might be. So, it will have a control of the devices attached to the computer system. Then the software can be broadly divided into two categories, right? That is system software and application software. Now let us see what is the system software. It is a collection of programs that governs the entire hardware operations and supports the application software. So this system software, actually it is a collection of programs, okay, wherein it is governing the entire, means it's controlling the entire hardware operations as well as the application software also. And it is generally prepared by the computer manufacturers, okay. And without system software, the computer cannot work. All right. So the first thing, as soon as you switch on the computer, the first page what you see is called the Windows, for example. Okay, that is your operating system. Okay, that is a system software. Without that, you cannot work with the computer. Okay, if that particular page is not loaded, then you cannot go ahead and open any of the application software. Like you want to work with Microsoft Word, you cannot open it until and unless the operating system is loaded in the computer. That is the system software. All right. So some common examples of system software are BIOS, operating system, device drivers, and language processor. Now let us discuss one by one. Okay. So what is a BIOS? BIOS actually stands for Basic Input Output System. But before learning about BIOS, actually we should know what is booting. Booting is nothing but loading the operating system into the main memory. Means as soon as you switch on the computer, okay, the operating system should get loaded into the main memory. That process is called booting. And the first program which comes, okay, when the computer is switched on is called as the BIOS, which is the Basic Input Output System. And these programs are stored on a chip which is called the BIOS chip, and it is fitted onto the motherboard of a computer. Then now we have operating system. Operating system is a set of programs. Without operating system, as discussed earlier, without operating system, we cannot work with a computer because it is helping the user to interact with the computer, and also it will allow to communicate with the hardware and the attached devices. Means if you want to give a printout, if the system is not switched on, means if the operating system is not available inside it, that is your Windows page is not open, you cannot give a print option there. If you want to work with a Microsoft Word or a notepad, anything which is inside the computer, The user can interact only when this operating system is loaded in the computer. And also there is a kernel, which is the one program running at all times. All times this kernel will be running, means it stays loaded into the main memory all the time, which is very important. And the operating system performs some tasks like receiving the input, sending information to output devices, keeping track of files and directories in the memory, as well as controlling other peripheral devices like printers, monitors, keyboards, etc. Okay, so these are the basic tasks which are performed by an operating system. And what is the need for this operating system now? Operating system provides a software platform on top of which other programs like application programs run. As told you, as soon as the operating system is loaded into the computer, the system is ready to use. So the user can make use of these application programs and make them run. Okay, and some of the most popular operating systems are DOS, that is disk operating system, Microsoft Windows, Linux, Mac OS, and Solaris, JBoss, etc. All these are the most popular operating systems which are available. And also all the operating systems are designed to perform some basic operations. What are the basic operations? Let us see one by one now. So these are the basic operations which all the operating systems will do. That is, send information to the computer through the keyboard. Means through the input unit, the information can be sent to the computer and display the results on the monitor. Okay, once the data is processed, what happens? The result gets displayed and that can be displayed on the monitor, and that is also with the help of operating system only. Then send information to a printer. Okay, this is also with the help of operating system. And also read or write files onto the secondary storage devices. Okay, this is also with the help of operating system only. And see, this is the operating system. Okay, it is connected to the hard drive, applications, monitor, printer, mouse, keyboard. If this is not there, these all will not work. Now let us discuss the types of operating system. So we have got few operating systems here. Those are single user operating system, multi-user operating system, batch operating system, networking operating system, distributed operating system, multi-programming, multitasking, multi-threading, multi-processing, time sharing, real-time or online. Now let us see one after the other. First one is single user operating system. An operating system that allows a single user to perform only one task at a time is called as single user operating system. Example is DOS. Here what happens, only one single user is allowed to perform only one single task. That means when a process is in execution, it has to be completed. Then only we can execute another program. See, once execution started means it has to stop. Then only we can execute another program. That is a single user operating system, and its example is DOS. That is disk operating system. Then we have multi-user operating system. It is a system that allows more than one user to access a computer system at one time. Means more than one user can access the computer system. All right. And the examples are Linux, Unix, Windows. Then we have batch operating system. Here in this batch operating system, actually the interaction between the user and the computer will not occur. The interaction between a user and the computer does not occur in this system. Means it is not interacting with they are not interacting with the system. The user is required to prepare jobs on punched cards in the form of batches and then submit them to the computer operator. So here what happened earlier days, okay, this was a process which was going on. Okay, they used to prepare the jobs, that is the programs or tasks, on punched cards in the form of batches. Okay, and they used to submit them to the computer operator. And this computer operator sorts the jobs or programs and keeps similar programs or jobs in the same batch and run as a group to speed up processing. It is designed to execute one job at a time. So this computer operator, what he or she will do is they will sort what programs, like if a printout has to be taken, how many printouts has come. Okay, they will be keeping in one order all the printouts. Okay, some data needs to be entered or something like that. Okay, so these are again divided into batches. Okay, they will sort them out and run as a group so that the speed up of the processing increases. Okay, then it is designed to execute one job at a time. So only one job is executed at one time. Jobs are processed on a first come first serve basis. Means those who give first, their job will be executed first. That is called first come first serve basis. That is in the order of their submission without any human intervention. Okay, so in the order of their submission, what without any human intervention means without any human interaction, that will the work will be done. That is the jobs are processed. Once the processing is done, at a later stage, the user can come and collect the output. All right. Then we have got the network operating system. The basic purpose of network operating system is to allow shared file and printer access among multiple computers in a network, typically a local area network. Here, the computers will be in networking actually. Means the printer or the speakers, anything can be shared by different computers. Okay, and the computers which are actually in a local area network, it is a type of network. Okay, so like example, if there is a ground floor and first floor, in the ground floor the printer is there, and from the first floor, if anyone want to give a printout, they can give the print option in the first floor and collect the printout in the ground floor, because the particular systems are in a network, and that too in a local area network. Okay, so in networking operating system, what happens is they will be sharing the files and printer access among the multiple computers in a network, right? Then we have got distributed operating system. It uses or runs on multiple independent processors, that is CPUs, to serve multiple users. But the user views the system as a uniprocessor. Here, user will be using the system and he will be thinking that he is using a single system. But here what happens is it runs on multiple independent processors. Okay, there are several CPUs here takes place, but the user thinks it as only one single processor. In distributed operating system, users are not aware of where their programs are being run or where their files are residing. As it is running on multiple independent processors, users are not aware actually exactly where their program is being executed or run or where their files are present. Okay, they should all be handled by the operating system. So here what happens, everything is handled by this particular operating system only. That is the reason the user will not know how many CPUs are there and where the data is there. Okay, they will be thinking in one particular CPU only their work is being executed. And the example is Novell. Okay, and here the communication between processors is established through many communication lines such as telephone lines, etc. Okay, so here what happens, as there are multiple processors available, so they are establishing, okay, they are contacting with each other with the help of communication lines like telephone lines. All right, moving further, we have got multi-programming operating system. It is an attempt to increase the utilization of CPU. This technique reduces the idle time of the CPU. For this, I'm going to show you an example first. Okay, here we have got example 1 and example 2. See, in example 1, there are 6 steps you can say, that is input ABC, which will take care of which input device is busy here. Then C is equal to A plus B, processor is busy here. Then print C, output device is busy here. Okay, so these 3 steps are then 1 second each. 1 second for input, 1 second for processing, 1 second for output. Similarly, there is another execution also, input, process, output. Input XYZ, Z is equal to X plus Y, print Z. Means here input device, here processor and here output device. So the totally it is taking 6 seconds to complete, right? Now the another example I am showing you, the same example written in another manner, which will tell us how the CPU idle time is reduced. Okay, first input ABC, input device is busy here. Then when in then comes the processor. Okay, C is equal to A plus B, means here processor is busy. At that time the input device is free, so we can make use of the input device here. That is the reason when it is processing, I am making use of the input device. So input XYZ. Now comes the third, print C, means here processor is free. Okay, now the output device is busy. So as the processor is free, what I have done, once when output device is busy, we are giving the processing, Z is equal to X plus Y. Okay, then after this print command is executed, printer is free, that is the output device is free. So print Z, we are making use of the output device. Okay, so here the same execution has been done in 4 seconds, whereas the previous example we have taken 6 seconds of time. So that is only to reduce the idle time of the CPU. Okay, so it is an attempt to increase the utilization of CPU. This technique reduces the idle time of the CPU. So it is making use of all the devices. Okay, when one device is free, okay, we are giving a instruction to that device and making it engaged, right? Then we have multitasking operating system. The ability to run several programs simultaneously is known as multitasking operating system. Example, Unix, Windows 2000. Means running several programs side by side. Simultaneously means side by side. Okay, that is known as multitasking operating system. Then we have multi-threading operating system. The ability to run several functions of a single program simultaneously is known as multi-threading operating system. That is Linux, Windows 2000, X. Right? So here what happens is actually a big program will be there. Okay, that is broken into small pieces for execution, which we call it as a thread actually. Okay, when 100 lines or of execution is there. Okay, but we are only executing first 10 lines. That is called a thread. Okay, in that way the execution process will go on here. Next is multiprocessing operating system. The operating system is capable of using and managing more than one processor is called as multiprocessing operating system. Means here more than one processor is available. For example, task 1 and task 2, task 3, task 4, task 5 and task 6 are available. And there are 3 processors here, processor 1, processor 2 and processor 3. So task 1 is assigned to processor 1, task 2 to processor 2, task 3 to processor 3. So now 3 tasks are being executed. As soon as in the processor 3, okay, task 3 is completed, then the task 4 will be assigned to processor 3. Then after in processor 1, the task is completed. Then the task 5 will be assigned to processor 1. So whenever the tasks are completed within the specified time, then the processor will become free, so that the next task will be assigned to the particular processor which is free. All right. Then we have time sharing operating system. In this, the operating system allows more than one user to share the computer system. So the CPU time is divided among the number of users in a small time slot or time slice period. So here what happens is more than one user is sharing the computer system. So the CPU what it does, divide the number of it will divide the number of time, that is the time will be divided among the number of users, and that divided time is nothing but the small time is called as slot. Okay, small time slot or time slice period. This switching process between the jobs is so fast that the user cannot feel there is a time gap, and realize as if the system is dedicated to him or her only, and number of processes are running concurrently. The jobs are executed by the CPU in round robin fashion. So here what happens, as the time is being divided between the number of users, that will not be known to the users, because that process is very fast. Actually, the switching process between the job is so fast that the user cannot feel that there is a time gap. Means actually the time gap is there, but the user cannot feel it, will not feel it. Okay, because the process is being done in very fast manner. Okay, so so the user, whoever he or she, will think that the system is dedicated to them. Okay, and the processors are running concurrently. Okay, side by side, the processors are also being running, and this particular fashion is called as round robin fashion. The jobs are executed by the CPU in round robin fashion. All right. Then we have online or real-time operating system to get immediate response from the computer for any request of the user. Okay, at present we are using this online or real-time operating system. Okay, this is used for an immediate response. Okay, that is, the online operating system is used in the computerized reservation counter of railways and airlines and etc. Example is Linux and Windows CE. So here what happens, immediately we get a response from the computer. As soon as a user requests anything, in no matter of time we get the response. Like railway reservations and all now are being done online, and the airline also. All right. So now we are done with the types of operating system. So next is, and there are some other operating systems as well, okay, which are dedicated to the personal computer operating system, wherein Windows, Linux, Mac OS, etc. These are being used for personal computer operating system. Then for server operating system, Windows NT, OS by 2 and Unix, etc. For mainframe operating system, mainframe itself is an operating system. Then for handheld operating systems, okay, Windows SE is being used, and mobile operating systems, Apple's iOS, Google's Android, Microsoft Windows 8, etc. All these are being used as well, right? Then moving further, so we are discussing system software. So we are done with BIOS and operating system. And the third one, remember, it is device drivers. So now what is this device driver? The operating system also contains drivers to manage devices. A driver is a type of translation software that allows the operating system to communicate with the devices, and there are different drivers for different devices as each device speaks a different language. Means here the external devices are attached to the computer, right? Like printer. If you want to give a print, a printer should be attached, otherwise we will not get a printout. So for that, actually a driver software should be installed. Now this driver, what it will do, it is a translation software actually, okay, that allows the operating system to communicate with the devices. Okay, and it will say that, okay, they are asking to give us a print, means it is going to give a printout. Okay, because each device speaks a different language. That is the reason individual drivers are required for individual devices. That is device drivers. Then we have language processor. Now what is this language processor? The programs are written mostly in high level languages actually, like Java, C++, Python, etc. These are the high level languages and are called source code. Okay, the language written in any of these languages, that is in any of the high level language, is called as source code. The source code cannot be executed directly by the computer actually. Okay, it must be converted into machine language, which is nothing but the object code. So the system software which converts a program written in high level language to machine language and vice versa, means other way also, is called as language processor or translator. Okay, so the high level languages should be converted into machine language. Okay, for that this language processor is being used, which is nothing but a translator. Okay, see here, program in high level language, which is nothing but a source code. Okay, that will go to the translator and translator will convert it into object code, that is program in machine language. And the reverse way is also possible. Okay, once it gives the output, again it comes back to the translator, again translator will translate and it will present here. All right. Then there are three types actually, three types of translators. First one is assembler, second one is compiler, and the third one is interpreter. So let us see what an assembler is. A language processor which translates a program written in assembly language into machine language is called as an assembler. Hope you remember in the introduction I told you mnemonics are used in assembly language. Okay, and a translator is required, an assembler to convert. Same here. That is also the same here now. A language processor which translates a program written in assembly language, that is a mnemonics, into machine language is called an assembler. Okay, it is one type of translator. Then comes our compiler. A compiler is a language processor which converts the entire program written in high level language into machine language in one go. All errors are reported at the end along with the line numbers. So here what happens, the compiler's work is also to translate the high level language. Okay, what it will do, it will translate the whole program at one time, means in one go, it will, at one shot it will translate the full program. Okay, so that means 10 lines of program is there, all the 10 lines will be translated and will be given at a time. Okay, and if any errors are there, what happens, those errors will be given to us at the end. Okay, all errors are reported at the end along with the line number. So in which line the error is, that will be reported. So example is C and C++. Okay, so once the errors are there, again what we need to do, we have to rectify the error and again we have to compile for the translation. Then next is interpreter. It is also one type of translator actually. But an interpreter is a language processor which converts the entire program written in high level language into machine language line by line. Okay, so here the interpreter, what it is doing in compiler, and in one go the entire program is translated. But in interpreter what happens is the entire program, the full program is translated line by line. Okay, so if any error is there in the program, it will stop. Okay, the program translation and the execution also will stop until the error is rectified. So here what happens, there is an error, 10 lines of program is there, in the second line an error is there. So further execution will not be done, further translation will not be done, it will stop there. So the user has to rectify that error, again they have to try to convert it, then only it will proceed further. Okay, examples are PERL, Perl, Python and MATLAB. Okay, so in our next class, we will be discussing about application software and its categories. All right, so thank you for today's class.